Using scales and modes on the guitar can be a massive pain in the ass. So what we're going to do in this video is talk about the process of how you go about doing it effectively. What you need to do before you can actually start using them is figure out which scales and modes you like the sound of and which ones go with which particular chord. There are 5 main chord types that you will come across in most modern Western music. Those chord types are major 7 chord types, which against that I would be looking at using the Lydian mode, which sounds like this. Then you've got minor 7 chord types, which I would look at using the Dorian mode. You've then got dominant 7 chord types, where I'd be using Mixolydian. And then you have altered dominant chord types, where you've got a couple of different options. The most obvious one is the altered scale. Some people like to use the half-whole diminished scale. Personally, depending on the context that it's in, I like to use the normal Lorian scale rather than super Lorian. The reason I like to use Lorian against that particular chord type is because the Lorian mode gives you a flat 9, a sharp 9, a flat 5 and a sharp 5, but what it means is all my traditional 3 notes per string rock style vocabulary that I've spent years developing I can use without having to change my thought process into the super Lorian mode, which shape wise is not as friendly to the vocabulary that I've developed. There's only 1 note difference between those 2 scales. In certain contexts it doesn't sound the best to use Lorian, but most of the time I get away with it, so it's fine. Playing the guitar is hard enough as it is, so if you can find some workarounds, that is a cool way to do things. I'm not here to promote shortcuts by any stretch of imagination, but for me that was just a harmonic device that I found that worked. Where that came from was reading a book from a guy called Les Wise. He's a well-known jazz educator, and he said about using the major scale, a semitone up from altered chords, for the very reasons I explained. You get flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, sharp 5. I looked at that and just went, well, that's the Lorian mode, isn't it? If I'm playing A7 sharp 5 and I play B flat major scale, it's the A Lorian mode. Simple as that. There are other chord types that you may come across, but they are your 5 main chord types. Now, once you've got an associated scale that goes with that particular chord type, then basically what you need to do is develop vocabulary with that scale. Now, there's a way that I've devised for developing vocabulary, which I also find very powerful, which allows me to play many more creative ideas than just running up and down the scales. That idea is something that I call the scale pyramid. Now, what that means is, for example, let's take our A minor 7 chord, and I've associated with that A minor 7 chord my A Dorian mode. That is my 7 note scale that is applicable to that particular chord. Outside of those 7 notes, how I look at this is I class that as the bottom rung or base of my pyramid. Okay, now if I pyramid up from there, what I can now play is 6 notes. So I'm going to take one of the notes out. The note that I'm going to take out will be the 6th, so I end up with this. That's what's called a hexatonic scale. So it's basically like A minor pentatonic that you already know, which is a 5 note entity, and I'm adding to that a 9th. Okay, so that's a hexatonic scale. After that, I would then look at 5 note entities. Those 5 note entities are, as you know, pentatonic scales. Okay, now in A Dorian there is A minor pentatonic. You can also use B minor pentatonic, and you can use E minor pentatonic. Next thing from there is to look at 4 note entities, which is arpeggios. So I could use a G major 7 arpeggio over A minor 7. I could also use A minor 7. I could use B minor 7. I can use C major 7. I can use D dominant 7. I can use E minor 7. I can use F sharp minor 7 flat 5. And then that takes me back to the G major 7. When I look at that, you can then also look at using triads, intervals, and more. So for each chord type, what I've then deduced is I've got a scale that I can use for each chord type, and then a whole list of harmonic devices within inside that scale. I then look at combining those harmonic devices with the various technical areas that I like to use, which is the legato technique, alternate picking, sweep picking, and tapping. Once you start combining the technical areas that you like to use with the harmonic devices that you're happy to use, you're well on the way to developing the musical vocabulary that you want to make. Finally, once you've got to a point where you've got your harmonic devices and technical stuff all sewn together, you can start creating licks, lines, and runs with each one of those particular scales. Once you've got all of that together, you can pretty much play over any chord progression. If this all sounds interesting to you and you want to dive much deeper into the information that I've talked about here, at the links in my description below, you can get access to my free cutting edge guitar blueprint course that will go into great detail with everything that I've discussed in this video. If you've got this far, YouTube happens to know something else that you would be really interested in and something that's going to benefit your playing. Somewhere on the screen right now you'll find a link to that particular video, so go and watch that to keep progressing with your guitar. See you in the next video.